Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Yud Amud Aleph. We're starting about 12 lines up from where the wide lines begin on that Amud. And we're picking up in the Gemara from the discussion of the second part of the Mishnah. Mehechan korei adam et Megillah v'chulei. This is the Mishnah talking about from what point you have to read Megillah Esther in order to fulfill your obligation. Tanya, we learn in a Braita, Rashbi Omer, mi balayla hahu. So adding to the positions in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that you can read from the words balayla hahu at the beginning of Parak Vav of Megillah Esther, and that will fulfill your obligation. This is all a Braita, and this is the quote balayla hahu. So this adds another opinion to the ones that we saw in the Mishnah, another Tannaitic opinion. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, v'kulan mikra achad darshu. All of these positions, meaning the ones in the Mishnah plus Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they all learned it out from one pasuk. And the pasuk is Vatichtov Esther Amalka Mordechai Yehudi et Kol Tokav. From towards the end of Megillah Esther, from Parak Tet, Esther the queen and Mordechai the Jew wrote about all of the power or all of the force. So this is when they are writing down the Megillah. So what does it mean that they wrote about all of the force? Man da'amar kula, for the one who says that we have to read the whole Megillah, all of it, tokpo shel Achashverosh. It's about the power of Achashverosh. Megillah, of course, begins with Achashverosh. The story is about Achashverosh, according to this opinion. Uman da'amar mi'ish Yehudi, and the one who says that we read from the words Ish Yehudi, the introduction to Mordechai, tokpo shel Mordechai. So then we're focused on the power of Mordechai. Uman da'amar me'achar hadvarim ha'ela, and the one who says that you can read starting from the words achar hadvarim ha'ela, the introduction to Haman, tokpo shel Haman. That person believes that we have to focus on Haman, the power of Haman. Uman da'amar mi balayla hahu, and the one who says that we begin reading from the words balayla hahu, when Achashverosh couldn't sleep, tokpo shel nas. That person wants us to focus on the power of the miracle. So in other words, they all learn it from this verse saying that the essence of what they wrote was about the force, about the power, but they have different ideas about what kind of power you're supposed to see at play in Megillah Esther. Rav Huna Amar Mehacha. Rav Huna says, yes, they all learn from one verse, but it's a different verse. This is the verse they get it from here. Umara u'al kacha umahigia alehem. Also from that parak, towards the end of Megillah Esther, what they saw in this regard and what happened to them, meaning what they saw, what was going on around them, and what happened to them as a result. Rashi here comments and says it was what they saw and then the effects of what they saw. Manda Mar Kula, so the one who says you have to read all of it, Ma ra'a Achashverosh nishtamesh b'kilim shel Beit HaMikdash, al kacha mishum dechashiv shivim shanin v'lo ifrok. So the Mara'ah refers to Achashverosh, who used the kelim of the Beit HaMikdash. Al kacha, for this reason, because he calculated 70 years, and they had not been redeemed. We've seen this midrash before. Achashverosh thought he could use the kelim of the Beit HaMikdash because the Jews hadn't been redeemed, and he thought that 70 years had passed, and he thought that meant that they weren't going to be helped by God. Umahigia alehem, and what happened to them as a result, to katal Vashti, that Vashti got killed. So according to this opinion, according to Rav Huna, according to the opinion that says you have to read the whole Megillah, it's all about Achashverosh and the miscalculation and the fact they hadn't been redeemed yet, and the consequences that Vashti gets killed, and that's what sets everything in motion. Uman da'amar mi'ish Yehudi, and the one who says you read starting from the words Ish Yehudi, Mara'a Mordechai di'kani beHaman. It's about what Mordechai saw such that he was jealous of Haman, he was zealous about Haman. Al kacha, about the following, about this, deshavi nafshi avodah zarah, that he considered himself or made himself like avodah zarah. So in other words, it's all about Haman getting upset about Mordechai getting upset that Haman was equating himself with avodah zarah. Umahigia alehem, and what happened as a result, dit rachish nisa, that a miracle occurred. That was what set it all in motion, and then a miracle happened. Uman damar me'achar hadvarim ha'ela, and the one who says that we start from achar hadvarim ha'ela, ma ra'a Haman shenitkaneh b'chol ha'yehudim. What was it that Haman saw that caused him to feel jealous or feel angry and zealous about all the Jews? Al kacha, what was it about for him? About this, mishum de Mordechai lo yikrav v'lo yishtachaveh, was because Mordechai wouldn't bow down. Uma higia alehem, and what happened as a result? V'talu oto v'panav al ha'etz. He got hanged. That's what happened as a result. That's what set it all in motion. Uman damar mi b'layla hahu, and the one who says that you begin reading from the words b'layla hahu, that is because of mara'a Achashverosh lahaviyat sefer hazichronot. What was it that Achashverosh saw to make him bring out the Book of Memories? Al kacha, because of this, the reason was disminte Esther laHaman behade, that Esther invited Haman with him, with Achashverosh. We've seen this idea before also, that Achashverosh was very upset, that thought it was sketchy that Haman was also invited to this party. Uma higia alehem, what happened as a result? Titrachish nisa, that a miracle occurred. That's the end of the assessment of those different opinions. Now we move on. Amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Chama bar Guria, Amar Rav, halacha k'divrei haomer kula. The halacha is like the one who says that you have to read the whole thing. You have to read all of the Megillah. But even the one who thinks that you can read from the words Me'ish Yehudi, meaning even the opinion that thinks you don't have to read the whole thing, you have to have the entire Megillah written in front of you. So even if you think you could read less than all of it, you still have to have an entire written Megillah in front of you. Amar Rabbi Chelbo, Amar Rav Chama bar Guria, Amar Rav, Megillah nikret sefer, v'nikret tigeret. The Megillah is referred to as a book, a sefer, a scroll, and also as an igeret, a letter. Nikret sefer, she'im tafra b'chutei pishtan psula. It's called a sefer to tell us that if it is sewn with linen threads, then it is invalid, because this is like a Torah scroll, and Torah scrolls, the sections can't be sewn together with linen. V'nikret tigeret, and it's called a letter, she'im hitil ba shosha chutei gidin kshera. So it's called a letter to tell us that if you sewed it with 3 strands of sinew, then it's kosher. And the Gemara is going to explain a little bit. A Torah scroll is stitched all the way along the seam of the adjoining sections, except for a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. But here, basically, it's saying you only really need 3 stitches. And Megillah is kosher. So it's an igeret, that makes it different from a Torah scroll, but it's a sefer, and that makes it in some ways the same as a Torah scroll. Amar Rav Nachman, Rav Nachman qualifies this statement, u'bilvad shehu meshulashin. As long as they are meshulashin, like in thirds, meaning the 3 stitches are okay as long as they are equidistant from one another. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, hakorev Megillah haktuva bein haktuvim lo yatsa. Someone who reads from a Megillah that's written among the rest of Ketuvim has not fulfilled their obligation. So you have a scroll that contains all of Ketuvim, and you read Megillah Esther from that scroll, you have not fulfilled your obligation. Amar Rava. So Rava says, again, continuing on this, commenting on this idea that you're not Yotze that way, Lo amran ela lo mechasra miatra porta. This was only said if you don't make one a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. Porta is a little bit. But if you do make one a little bit bigger or smaller, then there's no problem with it. Literally, there's nothing in it, meaning there's no problem with it. So if the parchment that the Megillah is on is either longer parchment or shorter parchment, so that it stands out from the rest of the scroll, then it's okay. But if not, then it's not okay. Levi bar Shmuel have a kari kame to Rav Yehuda b'Megillah. So Levi bar Shmuel was reading Megillah in front of Rav Yehuda. B'Megillah ktuva bein haktuvim. From a Megillah that was ktuva bein haktuvim, that was written among the other ktuvim. So we had a scroll of all of ktuvim, and he was reading Megillah Esther. Amar lei, harei amru hakorev b'Megillah ktuva bein haktuvim lo yatsa. So he said to him, but didn't we learn that you're not allowed to do that. Amar B'chia bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan, Hakareh Megillah Haktuva Bein Haktuvim Lo Yatsa. If you read from a Megillah that's written, again, among the other writings, right, a Megillah, a scroll that contains all of Ktuvim, or many Ktuvim, then you're not Yotzei. Umachu la'amucha, b'tzibor shanu. But he turned it on its head, or he, you could say it means like clarify. Literally, it means hit it on its head. But it's kind of like he clarified this. But tzibor shanu. We only learned this about its tzibor. This was taught about its tzibor. So if you're reading the Megillah publicly, that's when you can't read from something that's ktuva bein haktuvim. But if you're reading it privately, then you could. V'amar B'chia bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan, Shiur HaTefer Halacha Moshe Misinai. So the measure, or the margin of the stitches, is Halacha Moshe Misinai, was given by God to Moshe at Sinai, and this refers to the need to leave a little bit of space at the top of a scroll and a little bit at the bottom. So when you sew two pieces of parchment together, you don't sew the edges. You leave a little margin unsewn. And this, according to Rashi, this is to prevent the scroll from ripping, because this way if it rips, it'll just rip on a seam. It'll actually be better. Umachu, and that's actually what he's going to say. Umachu la'amucha. He hit it on its head, meaning he changed his mind. He changed something about it. V'lo amru ela kadesh lo yikra. They only said this so that it will not tear. Meaning, no, it's not actually Halacha Moshe Misinai. It's a rabbinic invention, and they only said it so that it won't tear again, so it'll just tear on the seams. If it tears, that's why you leave a little bit unsewn at the top and bottom edges of these two segments sewn together. V'amar B'chia bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan, Ilmalei nishtayer b'ma'ara she'amad b'Moshe v'Eliyahu ki lo nekev machat tzidkit, lo hayu yicholim la'amod mipnei ha'orah. Related in the sense that this is a statement from the same series of people. If an opening the size of even a small needle had remained in the cave where Moshe and Eliyahu were, then they wouldn't have been able to stand it because of the light. Meaning each one of them, Moshe and Eliyahu, was in a sort of cave when the divine presence was present. And you can't be in the presence of the divine and survive, so if there had been only even just a tiny crack in the cave, the light would have killed them. Shnei Amar, as it says, Kilo Yirani Hadam B'chai, right? People cannot see God and survive. Ve'amar B'chia bar Abba Amar B'Yochanan, Mai Dichtiv, what is it that is written? Why does it say, Ba'alehem k'chol hadrim asher diber Hashem imachem b'har? What is the meaning of this pasuk? Sorry, this is a question. What's the meaning of this pasuk from Dvarim? It's written on them. Everything, meaning it's talking about the Luchot, everything in accordance with what God said to you on the mountain. So what does this mean? This teaches us that God showed Moshe all the details of interpreting the Torah, and all the future rabbinic interpretations of the Torah, and that which the scholars of the future would create, would make up in the future. And this is the Gemara adding, what are these? Meaning, what future innovations are we talking about? Mikra Megillah. This is a reference to Mikra Megillah. So, sort of ties it all together. We're back to Mikra Megillah, and we'll stop here.